This is the fourth part of the Roman Empire series. If you haven't watched the first, second, or third part yet, go check it out and subscribe. Claudius was born on the 1st August 10 BC at Lugdunum. He had two older siblings, Germanicus and Livilla. His mother, Antonia Minor, may have had two other children who died young. Claudius's maternal grandparents were Mark Antony and Octavia Minor, Augustus's sister. He was therefore the great-great-grandnephew of Gaius Julius Caesar. His paternal grandparents were Livia, Augustus's third wife, and Tiberius Claudius Nero. During his reign, Claudius revived the rumor that his father Nero Claudius Drusus was actually the illegitimate son of Augustus, to give the appearance that Augustus was Claudius's paternal grandfather. In 9 BC, Claudius's father Drusus died on campaign in Germania from a fall from a horse. Claudius was then raised by his mother, who never remarried. When his disability became evident, the relationship with his family turned sour. Antonia referred to him as a monster and used him as a standard for stupidity. She seems to have passed her son off to his grandmother Livia for a number of years. Livia was a little kinder, but nevertheless sent Claudius short, angry letters of reproof. He was put under the care of a former mule driver to keep him disciplined, under the logic that his condition was due to laziness and a lack of willpower. However, by the time he reached his teenage years, his symptoms apparently waned, and his family began to take some notice of his scholarly interests. In 87, Livy was hired to tutor Claudius in history with the assistance of Sulpicius Flavus. He spent a lot of his time with the latter, as well as the philosopher Athenodorus. Augustus, according to a letter, was surprised at the clarity of Claudius's oratory. Claudius' work as a historian damaged his prospects for advancement in public life. According to Vincent Scramuzza and others, he began work on a history of the civil wars that was either too truthful or too critical of Octavian, then reigning as Caesar Augustus. In either case, it was far too early for such an account, and may have only served to remind Augustus that Claudius was Antony's descendant. His mother and grandmother quickly put a stop to it, and this may have convinced them that Claudius was not fit for public office, since he could not be trusted to toe the existing party line. When Claudius returned to the narrative later in life, he skipped over the wars of the Second Triumvirate altogether. But the damage was done, and his family pushed him into the background. Tiberius, the new emperor, responded by granting Claudius consular ornaments. Claudius requested office once more, and was snubbed. Despite the disdain of the imperial family, it seems that from very early on, the general public respected Claudius. When his house burned down, the Senate demanded it be rebuilt at public expense. They also requested that Claudius be allowed to debate in the Senate. Tiberius turned down both motions, but the sentiment remained. During the period immediately after the death of Tiberius's son Drusus, Claudius was pushed by some quarters as a potential heir to the throne. After the death of Tiberius, the new emperor Caligula, the son of Claudius's brother Germanicus, recognized Claudius to be of some use. He appointed Claudius his co-consul in 37 to emphasize the memory of Caligula's deceased father, Germanicus. Despite this, Caligula tormented his uncle, playing practical jokes, charging him enormous sums of money, humiliating him before the Senate. Claudius became sickly and thin by the end of Caligula's reign, most likely due to stress. A possible surviving portrait of Claudius from this period may support this. There is no evidence that Claudius had a direct hand in the assassination, although it has been argued that he knew about the plot, particularly since he left the scene of the crime shortly before his nephew was murdered. However, after the deaths of Caligula's wife and daughter, it became apparent that Cassius intended to go beyond the terms of the conspiracy and wipe out the imperial family. In the chaos following the murder, Claudius witnessed the German guard cut down several uninvolved noblemen, including many of his friends. He fled to the palace to hide. According to tradition, a praetorian named Gratus found him hiding behind a curtain and suddenly proclaimed him princeps. They demanded that Claudius be delivered to them for approval, but he refused, sensing the danger that would come with complying. In return, Claudius granted a general amnesty, although he executed a few junior officers involved in the conspiracy. Actual assassins, including Cassius Chaerea and Julius Lupus, the murderer of Caligula's wife and daughter, were put to death to ensure Claudius's own safety and as a future deterrent. Since Claudius was the first emperor proclaimed on the initiative of the Praetorian Guard instead of the Senate, his repute suffered at the hands of commentators. Although Tiberius and Augustus had both left gifts to the army and guard in their wills, and upon Caligula's death, the same would have been expected, even if no will existed. Claudius remained grateful to the guard, issuing coins with tributes to the Praetorians in the early part of his reign. After becoming emperor, he adopted the name Caesar. To do so, he dropped the cognomen Nero, which he had adopted as pater familias of the Claudii Nerones when his brother Germanicus was adopted. As pharaoh of Egypt, Claudius adopted the royal titulary Tiberios Claudius. Autocrator heka hekau mariasepta, kanacht jediak shwemaket. Tiberius Claudius, emperor and ruler of rulers, beloved of Isis and Ptah, the strong bull of the stable moon on the horizon. While Claudius had never been formally adopted either by Augustus or his successors, he was nevertheless the grandson of Augustus's sister, Octavia, and so he felt that he had the right of family. Ancient historians agree that Claudius was murdered by poison, possibly contained in mushrooms or on a feather. He died in the early hours of 13 October 54. Nearly all implicate his final and powerful wife, Agrippina, as the instigator. Agrippina and Claudius had become more combative in the months leading up to his death. One last video on Roman Empire will be posted soon. Subscribe.